You convert from a tennis player to investment banker to VC and then to the founder of a innovative battery platform. So how is the journey?
When you're a small nation like Slovakia, you have to make a lot of friends, right? You cannot pick on big countries. So, we have this no enemy policy.
Marian Bocek has a background in venture capital and has played a key role in shaping Central Europe's deep tech ecosystem and has a strong track record in tech investments. Marian is currently the co-founder and CEO of InoBat, a pioneering company focused on developing intelligent electric vehicle batteries.
The advice I would give is really for the young generation to really commit to learning. The world is very likely to go through a lot of changes. The geopolitical situation is a big unknown right now. So I think the key is to maintain that inner strength, that inner peace that allows you to get through changes and adapt.
So getting the inner peace is as important as going to the Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can dream this big unless you believe in yourself that it's doable.
Hello and welcome to Build It Up, where AI meets crypto, technology meets humanity, and East meets West. I'm Bill Chen, the co-founder of Cypher Capital. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation. My guest today is Marian Bocek. He is from Slovakia, and he is an entrepreneur and investor specializing in clean technology and infrastructure. Educated at Cambridge University, Marian started his career in finance at Lehman Brothers. Then in 2014, he co-founded IPM Group, managing over 1 billion in assets. And since 2019, he's been leading battery innovation at InoBat. He's also passionate about education and founded the GBE Foundation. Most recently, he also played a key role in Lithium Rescue Plan. Marian, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Awesome. So let's start with the first question. I think most of the audience would be very interested that you convert from a tennis player to investment banker to VC and then to the founder of an innovative battery platform. So how is the journey like? How you make up all those type of convert and we'll be very interested.
It's been a life journey. I come from a little village in Slovakia. Where I grew up playing tennis, and then at the age of 17, I felt like maybe it's time to leave the country. This was 1999. Still, Slovakia was kind of waking up to be a modern European nation, and so I left as a teenager. Went to high school to the U.S. and tennis has been my entry ticket to get to these places. Right, when you come from a small country, you need to have something that kind of catapults you to places.
So sports is always a universal ice-breaking.
It is. It's a good door opener. And so I was able to play tennis for high school in the US, had a tennis scholarship for college in the States. And when I was 22, I had to realize that, basically I need to look for something else. And I was always inspired by the world of finance, that actually allows you to create the companies, provides the capital, to fund great ideas. And I was drawn to Lehman Brothers in sort of early 2000 because Lehman historically has been associated for the very wrong reasons with the crash. But what people don't know is that Lehman Brothers has been behind some of successful startup investments in Apple and many tech companies, Google as well. So I started as an investment analyst there. I was on the sales side. I was part of their...
How's the Lehman culture? Like very competitive, aggressive?
Yeah, very. I mean, this was 2004, so we were really trying to prove ourselves as an investment bank, trying to catch up with the league table winners, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, working extra hard, to win business. So it was a very competitive culture, a lot of late hours, a lot of former athletes were brought to Lehman. I think this was part of the recruitment policy to bring in boys and girls who can withstand long hours, a lot of pressure. And this is what sports training for. So yeah, it was very competitive, very also collegial. People were helping each other out, which I liked. So you saw that yes, it's competitive, but also you could work together as a team, which was very nice about Lehman Brothers. And even after the crash, a lot of the Lehmanites, the Lehman Brothers, are in touch. They went on to start interesting companies, and they stick together. It's a very important alumni. But to answer your question. After sell side, when you do deals, you basically work on a transaction.
Yeah.
When it's done, you don't know what happens actually with the company. You kind of move on to another deal. So I was always interested in building something. Slovakia has a culture of building products, factory. We are, after all, a number one automotive producer in the world per capita. So growing up as a child, you see a lot of factories, a lot of It's kind of industrial revolution happening.
Is it because
in your eyes?
Slovakia is a nation, with very strong manufacturing DNA and history?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a strong manufacturing heritage when it comes to heavy industry. This dates back to the legacy of Czechoslovakia being always a strong industrial player. And then Slovakia, after the split of Czechoslovakia, kind of morphing into a leader in automotive production. So having seen that as a kid growing up, I was drawn to building something. So the natural step was going on the buy side. Kind of the private equity VC world, where you can be part of assets, their creation for a longer time. And then as a sell-side advisor, I joined the World Bank. I moved from New York to Washington, and I became part of the private investment arm of the World Bank called the IFC, to invest in very interesting renewable energy projects. From hydros in Chile to combined power cycle plants in Pakistan. So very diverse, unique experience where you see that you invest in a project and all of a sudden it can change the course of a nation. Yeah, you see like a real impact.
So that was the very beginning you get into the green energy.
Yeah. So I was 24 over 20 years ago, and I fell in love with kind of the transformation going from fossil fuels to green energy. And World Bank has been, really the market setter, the market maker in this field. So I got to work on a very interesting first of its kind transaction. And then afterwards, I became homesick after Europe, so I decided to come back. Worked for a few funds in London and Paris on the infrastructure side. Interesting projects, such as first wind farm in the Middle East, in Jordan, where we were funding and developing a wind farm very close to the Dead Sea. So you go from the lowest point on Earth to some high altitude, region of Jordan within 2-mile radius, and all of a sudden you find a place with the best wind site. So why not put up 37 turbines there? And I was very lucky that as a fund manager in Paris, I was able to support our current board member in InoBat now, Tara Lindstedt, who was really top, still is a top developer of renewable energy projects, some of the first of its kind. So you see like the industry growing in front of your eyes, right? Wind, solar, hydros. And then I became homesick for Slovakia. So after 17 years of being, New York, Washington, Western Europe, I decided to come back. And I started an investment company called IPM with partners such as Adrian and Andrew Garman. And basically the idea was to set up a decarbonization investment platform. This was 10 years ago, 2014, when ESG and...
It's a very novel idea.
It's very sexy, trendy, but back then it was just like, okay. Yeah. And the whole idea was, okay, let's continue in our infrastructure focus, but let's look for the new infrastructure opportunities. So some of the first investment that we've done was the basically on behalf of Korean investors buying an equity stake in an LNG terminal in Dunkirk, France, the largest LNG terminal in Europe, which was kind of, the new era of energy. But slowly we started investing in tech. We're identifying some unique IP companies in the US and Europe in the battery and AI space, where we saw an opportunity to combine the world of IP, the world of technology, with the world of infrastructure. So like this new asset class came out called Infratech. In 2017 and 2019, we started taking some positions in US companies. One of them was a company called Wildcat Discovery Technology, which is an R&D company looking at different battery materials. And we saw an amazing opportunity to work with a company like that and use some of their know-how and some of our homegrown know-how to actually start InoBat. InoBat as a industrialization company that can work with different IP companies, work with different materials that come to the market to develop a high-performance solution to the markets which are unique and not necessarily served by the traditional suppliers like CATL, BYDs, markets like aviation, drone markets, UAVs, high performance, the Lamborghinis, Ducatis of the world, which need a bit of a different degree of chemistry than the ones you find in the catalog.
Where was that you come up with the thesis of InoBat?
It was 2019-20, so about 5 years ago. This is where the whole idea started. Basically, now we have gone from an idea to actually having a manufacturing facility in Slovakia. Shareholders such as Goshen, Rio Tinto, Amaraja, basically global investor base, and then we're looking to grow.
Yeah, I have a question regarding this. What do you feel from a banker to investor and then to a builder? Usually, like, people are sort of like, want to enjoy the comfortable life as a banker or investor, but it sounds like, you go to the opposite way and want to get your hands dirty. How do you feel the difference?
I think the biggest difference is in impact you have. I believe in this like concept of three eyes. This is Robin Sharma's, who is a coach I follow. He talks about always do something that gives you inspiration, influence, and impact, right? And when you build something, it's very difficult, right? Being an entrepreneur, you're facing so many death and rebirth, and you've gone through the journey yourself. But the beauty of it is like you really can build something that can inspire others, right? I feel like now it's InoBat, where the journey we have actually traveled, it can inspire other startup guys, other entrepreneurs in Slovakia, not to be afraid to start a company, to be able to raise global capital, hundreds of millions of euros. Okay, it can be done, right? If someone can do it, then the others will believe. You can really influence a new generation of founders, and I love that. Whereas in banking, very important field, but you really are one out of 10,000s of, analysts all over the world, crunching numbers. And it's a very important training, and I'm very grateful for that. However, you don't get to influence. You don't get to actually build something that you can look at and say, wow, this left some legacy in the country. Or was a complete failure. It may happen, right? Part of a startup world is also failing and learning.
Yes, yeah. So come back to the battery industry. I think it's one of the most impactful industry, but also one of the most difficult industry. And especially, for European founders. I know, that Northvolt just filed for the bankruptcy. And on top of that, what do you think the InoBat is so different, and how does it gonna survive among all the global competitors?
That's a very good question. Look, the European battery world is going against the giants, from Asia. Chinese, Japanese, and Korean manufacturers account for close to 95% of the market. You kind of become a drop in the ocean, but you want to have a big pebble effect. And the way InoBat has done it differently is by forming alliances. We believe in it may sound cliche, but we believe in the power of collaboration, from competition to collaboration. And
I guess that one is very different from the Northvolt, right?
I mean, typically the European battery model has been built on let's build a European national champions. InoBat, obviously, that was always the thesis. InoBat's creation has been inspired by Northvolt, what they have done, being the first in the market, the amount of capital they raised. They definitely were trailblazers. So if it was not for Northvolt, I don't think companies like InoBat or Verkor or Freyr would have existed.
So they're the pioneer, actually.
The pioneers. Yeah. However, what we have tried to do differently was really to focus on really start small and scale up fast, and not do it alone. So we have started with small production base in Slovakia, which has been operational now since 2023, and we have focused on the high performance market that is less crowded, and then that requires a special degree of customization, special degree of innovation.
Can you educate us a little bit? What is the high performance category?
These are, market segments like aviation, drone companies, but also like off-highway applications, like mining trucks or buses. They all require a different chemistry. If you are an aviation customer, you need a lot of power, right? To be able to take off, have a good power to weight ratio. You need to be light, you need to have high performance to take off safely and land safely. Same for drones, obviously. The payload, the weight is very important, so you need a specialized chemistry. So at InoBat, we have focused on the NMC chemistry. We developed now 4th generation of products, but we realized that actually if you want to scale up and grow, we cannot do it alone. So we are looking for the right partner, and I'm glad that we're able to find it, forming an alliance with our shareholder group. So we're able to get support from Rio Tinto, which is coming in our Series B and C, which obviously is a very important critical raw materials player.
Yes.
You cannot build batteries without access to lithium and other rare earth materials. And then for the scale up, for the manufacturing, we wanted to partner with someone who has done it many times. We're very lucky that we have formed a partnership with Goshen, which is a top 3 player in the LFP market.
Among the Japan, Korea, and China, and how you sort of narrow down in China, and also, in China, partners, how you ended up with Goshen.
It was destiny in a way. As I mentioned earlier in my intro, when I was an investor out of this Paris fund, I invested in a wind farm which was developed by Tara Lindstedt, who is this really phenomenal developer. And when InoBat was scaling up, when it was just delivering its first factory, I asked her to join the company and help us with the IP commercialization and industrialization. And one of the first ideas she had is like, we need a global partner that has built 10 plus gigafactories. And she has been instrumental in making the link between Volkswagen, which is ultimately a shareholder of Goshen, and Goshen InoBat, to form this partnership, which is European. It's European IP, but at the same time, it benefits from the know-how of an experienced industrial partners like Goshen. So they say that behind every successful project is a very smart woman. So it was thanks to our board member, and we believe that this is actually the answer to the challenges that European battery sector faces. That yes, European identity is important. However, you need to have your in-house know-how, but also you need to actually learn from the people who've built it before you.
Cool. And how do you see the all different strategic players from Australia, India, and China fitting your global, strategy?
I mean, I'm very lucky that thanks to Slovakia neutrality, we have global players from Australia, UK, like Rio Tinto, but also Chinese and Indian shareholders. And besides Goshen, which is 25% owned by Volkswagen, we also have Amara Raja, which is one of the leading traditional lead acid manufacturers in India. It's a family-owned business listed on the Mumbai Stock Exchange, but diversifying into the lithium ions. And I'm very glad that two largest nations are basically collaborating via InoBat consortium on also developing what could be a localized solution for the Indian market. I see India as the fastest growing market, next China when it comes to battery value chain. And I'm very glad that thanks to these partnerships, we can be part of that game, both in Europe, but also in India, and with the technological know-how of the Chinese partner.
Yeah, you mentioned to me before you are also part of the delegation in a lot of foreign visit along with your government. And it sounds like, Slovakia is a very sophisticated player as a European nation, to deal with different country and build up the alliance.
Look, when you're a small nation like Slovakia, you have to make a lot of friends, right? You cannot pick on big countries. So, we have this no enemy policy. I'm glad to see that the foreign policy of Slovakia is always embedded in strong, European values and transatlantic relationships. However, at the same time, being more open-minded about collaboration between West and East, So as a result, I believe Slovakia is becoming a very important bridge that really could play a significant role also in technological type of discussions between China and India, of which InoBat is part of, thanks to our shareholders group. Yes, I've been to delegations in China. I'm going now to India, and it's great to see that actually Slovakia now has a seat at the table, right? And we may not have the GDP weight, but I think when it comes to a technological solution and a potential winning strategy for how to scale up and build technological companies in Europe, this could be the answer, to what Slovakia and InoBat is doing.
Yeah, sounds like, in terms of green energy and manufacture, Slovakia has become a sort of a gateway to connect the Asian China to the Europe.
That's how I would love to see it, where we have an open door policy. I think the Goshen InoBat partnership is unique. It's first of its kind, where you have an Asian top 3 conglomerate and a European scale-up working together, having formed a joint venture, which is European, which is now developing a big gigafactory, one of the largest of its kind in the region, with strong government support. So yes, you can think of it that Slovakia is sort of ushering in the new era of PPP, public-private partnerships that are, global, local, and really focus on the end game, which is, how do we build successful technological companies in Europe, and clearly we cannot do it alone, and you cannot do it without the right government support. So I'm very glad that we have got the support on this level, because we have seen many examples of European startups where the government, walked away, where there was no industrial partner to help scale up and achieve the end result.
Yeah. Across all those, cross-cultural leadership and conversation, collaboration, how do you handle all those, different cultural difference?
Well, it's a unique situation. It's like United Nations. I'm very fortunate because I've been trained in different cultures at the World Bank. It was, I mean, institution with 180 shareholders. So I always loved working in diverse environments, and InoBat is no different. You know, like it's when you actually work there. We have now over 150 people. We got 21 nationalities. You don't feel like you're in a Slovak company. It's a global company. What allows us to overcome differences is we are unified by the goal, right? The mission, the vision, the purpose, and it's really to build a European champion, to build a company that can really successfully deploy gigafactories in Slovakia, and then use it as a blueprint for other nations via licensing. And this is something we are doing with partners like Amaraja and others.
How do you envision InoBat in next 5 years? Let's say, how do you see it by 2030?
My personal dream is that it will be at a level where when Gen Alphas or Gen Zs look at the company, they say, wow, this is so cool. I want to start my own startup. I'm brave. They have done it. I can do it again. And I really hope that we will continue to be the leaders in innovation. We would have had successful IPO or maybe an STO. Since you are from the tokenized world, I would also love to see that InoBat is leading the way in innovation in fundraising as well. And we have been able to import some important lessons from the infrastructure world, having secured a lot of grant money, non-dilutive public money, debt capital as well, in addition to equity. So we're not like a typical startup that is just raising very expensive big rounds. We have relatively small rounds complemented with non-dilutive grant money. I would love to also showcase that maybe one day InoBat could have its own InoBat coin, hopefully with collaboration with you, your infrastructure. So that we can give access to people like my mom, who would love to put some of her savings into InoBat, but she has no ways. You're not a qualified institutional investor.
Yeah.
So I love the idea that it could give people hope to start a company, but also give people access to invest, via democratic means like crypto and the Web3, decentralized world that you are working on.
That's very inspiring. And you mentioned you want to inspire the new generation as well. And I recall you also have your own charity foundation, right, to support the young generation. Can you elaborate a little bit for that?
We have a foundation. It's actually with a partner of mine, Peter Gajdoš, called GB, which stands for Give Back Education. The idea was going back to once again Robin Sharma. What he said is he loves this concept in Japanese called intoku, which is giving in secret. And I believe that really happiness is in giving back and try to help as much as possible. So GB Foundation was set up almost over 15 years ago. And we have decided with my partner, who was also a Wall Street analyst at the time, to basically put our first Wall Street bonus into a good use, And we have remembered how difficult it was actually from a small town to make it to the US, to actually get a good education and get the confidence that ingrained when you spend a year in the US. So we decided, okay, why don't we take some talented group of students every year, make them write an essay, why they want to go to America, and put them on the plane and on a scholarship to go to a high school and spend a year, get that experience, get that confidence level high, and then come back to Slovakia and spread the American optimism and the self-belief. And this is something we've been working on. I think we sent close to 30 people now. And it's amazing to see because they all came back, went to top schools, became, top lawyers, top VC investors. Some of them even are working for at InoBat and the portfolio companies of IPM. It's been an interesting project. We're looking to continue and to give back.
I think it's not only as a charity, but also a sort of real long-term evergreen venture capital. Because they invest in the real talent, right, and enable them.
Yeah, it's a seed funding and human talent, right? That's the ultimate investment. Investing in the next generation. I got a 10-year-old daughter, Tara, and it's just amazing to see how every generation is just growing exponentially in terms of the way they see the world. The generation of Slovaks of my kind always had the chip on their shoulder, like the East and West, dealing with some inferiority complexes because you come from Eastern Europe. I'm glad to see that this generation doesn't have that anymore because they all speak perfect English, confident, and it's because the generation of Gen Z that came after millennials, are passing on this confidence, and you see that we need to encourage actually the next generation by providing this type of seed investments, especially to talents who love astrophysics, but don't have the means to fly to the US or study in the US. Yes, it's all about, it's an enabler.
For next generation, a lot of people are worried about if the AI become very dominant and maybe the world will become two class. A very few people, they're ruling class, they're AI developers, they're billionaire, etc. And the rest of the people, they just, enjoy their UBI, universal basic income, and, consume the TikTok every day. What is your view on that? And what would be your advice to the next generation?
We're having this discussion at home, especially when we're dealing with homework. On one end, you feel like, okay, the curriculum they're studying now, is it gonna be obsolete, 10 years from now? Is it gonna prepare them for a life that is now AI driven and is growing exponentially? And I don't think we have the answer to it, but it's very likely it's no, right? And the curriculum is not able to keep up with what's ahead of us. The advice I would give is really for the young generation to really commit to learning, to take whatever they're going through at school, and they may not like memorizing the capital cities of countries or length of rivers, but it's actually really knowledge is the superpower, right? It's training your brain, it's training the discipline, new neural circuitry through basically just learning, reading, without any judgment of the material. Is really, I think this is the skill that will take humans forward, to develop this form of consciousness that AI will never be able to match, right? The human consciousness will always be superior, but we're not able to tap it yet. So I would really encourage kids and people in education. I'm glad to see there's a new movement that is focusing on, the mindfulness and conscious learning, and having the skills to be able to really take on whatever is going to come, whether it's resilience, stress management. The world is very likely to go through a lot of changes. The geopolitical situation is a big unknown right now. So I think the key is to maintain that inner strength, that inner peace that allows you to get through changes and adapt and never lose sight of what you really want, of who you are, of your authentic self. So that to me is, I think, the only solution or answer to the unknown.
So getting the inner peace is as important as going to the Mars.
Mars, yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can dream this big unless you believe in yourself that it's doable. So I think the first lesson is to avoid or limit, or basically to eradicate any limiting beliefs. We have been passed on by previous generations, especially in Eastern Europe, that nedá sa, no, it cannot be done, it's too impossible and all that. It was always the society of scarcity. The communism era was not necessarily abundant. So people basically embrace scarcity as their mindset, not to ask for much, not to expect much, just to fit in, not to stick out. And that's why the US experience has been so transformative for me. This is why GB is sending people to the US, because he just breaks through all these limitations. You see, yes, it can be done. You see Americans dreaming big. Would Elon Musk do all these crazy things had he stayed in South Africa? Probably not, So the US has been enabler in going crazy, dreaming big, and we are now importing that kind of new human brain development also to Slovakia through education, through the life experience. The control of future is only in here.
Yes. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, very well put. My last question would be, I think a lot of people will be very interested, like, how do you stay fit and always be very energetic? What is your secret?
I like my morning routine. I believe that this is the only part of the day you can control. And one of the first sort of kind of personal growth books and trainings I did was also with Robin Sharma, who talks about a lot about the 5 a.m. wake up club and the 2022 rule, where you basically start your morning with exercise, then you go into kind of meditation, self-reflection, and then the last 20 minutes you do some studying. So you basically set your mind for what's ahead of you while the world is asleep. You're getting ready.
So 20 minutes workout,
20 minutes sort of meditation, kind of set the goals for the day, your intention, what you're grateful for. Also recognize what you have already accomplished, not always think of the future. Be grateful for my family, amazing people, amazing opportunities, because that has a very positive neurochemical effect on your body, right? You release more happy hormones, and then with that mindset, you go into studying. So you absorb fast. You are full of dopamine. It's just much easier to get stuff done.
So what do you study in the morning?
I read books. Now I'm reading a book by Jim Camp, Start with a No. It's like a negotiations, which inspired the FBI negotiations tactic by Chris Voss.
So you don't study the email inbox, right? You
No,
study-
it's actually what I believe could help me upgrade myself a bit. The first 20 minutes, also after the workout, I love to go into cold water, kind of like this Wim Hof practice. You go through breathing exercise and then you jump into the water. It just gets you going for the day. And then when bad news come, bad email, you're not as shaky, because you have those high vibrations, and the goal is to stay there, not to let the external world bring you down. But of course, it doesn't always work, but you are trained for it.
So after the
Stress.
2020 protocol, then you will get into the work and
Yeah.
email, etc. You don't
Yeah,
do email during this.
No. I don't look at iPhone. Basically, when the brain waves, when you wake up, you basically are at the slower frequency brain waves, right? So your brain is able to absorb more. You're still at kind of the alpha wave. During the day, we're typically at the beta waves. So I stay away from iPhone because that throws you back into like the program. Oh my God, I have to respond to this and that. After 1 hour, you're ready to actually, when you grab the iPhone, then you can much more efficient, much more faster. You don't have this emotional reaction to bad news. You're able to deal with problems a bit easier.
Now I feel why I become so stressed because I check my iPhone too early. Yeah, I should.
Don't do it. First thing in the morning, don't do it. It conditions you to stress. The moment you look at the iPhone, your body will probably remember experience when you had some stressful emails.
Yes,
It's got to
get into a reactive mode, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that way you can be in control of your energy, in control of how you respond to challenges. There are many challenging situations. I've gone through one recently and still going through it. So this is my tool how to deal with it. I would recommend it to others. I have learned it from role models like Robin Sharma and Tony Robbins, these personal development coaches. And these are exactly the tools that they give you. You just have to apply them. So I'm learning how to apply them. I'm still a rookie, but it's kind of like in startups, you have to trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't, re-engineer if something doesn't work, but always keep adapting, keep learning, keep trying.
Yeah.
Never give up.
Wow, that's very inspiring. Thank you, Marian. Yeah, I think that's all for today, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, awesome.
And build it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for today on Build It Up. We will be back next week with another inspiring guest. Subscribe now so you never miss our amazing interviews. Until next time, this is Bill Chen. Goodbye and take care.